Welcome back to Grizzly Kiki. We're talking about movies that changed us this week, so stay tuned. Hi!
Hi.
Hi.
Everyone's so low energy!
Oh no, I thought we were all gonna intro
Yeah,
each other.
I didn't know where we were going.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say, "Hi, I'm Robert," and then we were gonna continue.
I'm Robert, that's Toss, and that's Daniel.
Hi. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday!
What's happy about it?
What's
new and
new?
exciting? Gaga
What's
tickets tomorrow.
Gaga tickets. That's
Elbowing my way to the
exciting.
front.
I got a dog crate. That's exciting. But I don't have a dog. We'll just leave it at that.
Let's not elaborate. Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh. Piper, no. It's my new favorite. Buddhism.
Guesses for
What's
the
new?
shooter? We were going to talk about that the other day. Guesses for the shooter on White Lotus?
Who?
I'm saying guesses.
I think La Lisa could be the shooter. I think that
No.
would just be like the whole left field. Make La Lisa the shooter.
No.
What if it's what's his face? Saxon?
I feel like
What if he
Saxon's
finds out
the older one, right?
Yeah, that it comes out that they have no money now, so he has nothing left to live, so he goes on a spree.
I think
Maybe,
it's going to be I think it's going to be the French girl's husband. Jennifer Coolidge's husband.
You think?
Yeah.
Well,
I do.
that's the most logical one.
Yeah.
The one that's gonna die, or the one that's the shooter.
No, the shooter.
Yeah, I think
I don't
that's
want to give any spoilers or anything because I know people probably haven't watched White Lotus, but we're not spoiling. There's a gunshot on the first episode, like within the first 30 seconds, so we're not spoiling anything for you.
Yeah, it's a whodunit.
It's a
season.
whodunit, so we're trying to figure out who the
It's
Whodunit.
Parker Posey. Can you imagine?
it's
Could you
Piper.
imagine? So I don't know. It could be any of them at this point.
Yeah. Let's talk about movies that changed us.
Who wants to start?
I'm just curious, are your movies like in order of importance or anything? Because mine are.
Mine are, yes. I only did 3. I could give you 5, but I only did 3, and they're like my top 3 favorite movies of all time.
Okay, well, Daniel and I have more than 3, but we can try and make ours.
We could do
concise.
5. Yeah, we could.
Well, in mine, I felt like I was playing pull it out of thin air because I had all week to think about it, but nothing was really coming to me. So let's see.
Was there criteria you used to come up with these movies?
For me, I looked at how they shaped me from like childhood to now, and looked at how they made me feel emotionally, how they shaped me in the sense that I wanted to learn more about whatever specific thing that is that the movie was touching on, or shaped me as in inspired me in some way. Sometimes it was just
Okay.
like a visceral emotional inspiration.
Yeah. I'm realizing that mine is maybe more of a memory dump because not all of these movies have inspired me, or at least not. There are a couple of movies on here that I haven't seen in a very long time that I'm trying to rediscover, but like I haven't gotten there yet really. But they were movies that I would watch over and over again as a child, and so I'm trying to like piece that together, almost like it's a therapy experience.
But there are also movies, when you speak of memory dump, there are also movies that have very specific memories for me as well, for sure, that I didn't include in the top 3, but I can also talk about those as well, because like The Exorcist is like one for me that is like huge, like as a memory dump movie, because I
Uh-huh.
can remember very vividly being terrified of that movie as a child, like absolutely terrified. And it's not like a very scary movie to today's standards.
Right.
I mean, like Linda Blair. Linda Blair is still very scary in that movie, but like I just remember like crying watching that movie because I was so scared.
Circumstances. How did you end up? Because you were probably like super young. How did you end up watching The Exorcist?
My sisters were watching it,
Okay.
and then
And they were like
snuck in.
babysitting you.
Yes, and I snuck in to watch it, even though they told me not to watch it. I watched it, and then I got scared and had nightmares.
Wow.
Do you remember what it was about that movie that made you like? Do you think it was just that they were watching a movie, or was it specifically that movie that you wanted to sneak in and watch it?
I think it was just, yeah, because I think it was because they said I couldn't watch this movie that I wanted to watch. And it wasn't the Catholicism or religion that scared me. Well, I probably didn't even know what all of that was as a child, but it was like really like her turning her head and like the whole exorcism ritual freaked the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah,
Like,
I can
yeah,
totally
like I
see.
had even no idea at that age like what like Catholicism and exorcism was. I just know that this was really scary
Hmm.
watching this as a child. This chick's head turned all the way around. And yeah, it was very scary.
I have a similar, the story you just told, it reminds me of, I was sleeping over at my aunt's house and I woke up to use the bathroom and they were watching like Water for Chocolate in the living room. And it was the scene, there's a scene where the main character eats matches and basically like explodes, right? That's a good description of what happens,
Yes, yes.
Daniel. Okay.
I
And
mean, I
so
haven't seen it in a long time, but yes, I think so.
it was the scene where she was eating the matches, and I literally just looked in to be like, oh, there are people in this room as I was going, like coming back from the bathroom. And something about being sleepy and seeing that, it was just like, it had a similar effect as to what you're describing with like watching her head turn and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that movie's not on my list. Daniel, do you want to kick us off with one of your movies?
Yeah, and it's funny, it's a movie I just thought of that I hadn't thought of before.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say To Catch a Thief with Grace Kelly and Cary Grant. It's probably my favorite movie, actually, now that I think about it.
Of all time.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
just so. I mean, so my mom would share all these old movies with me, and a lot of the movies that I like the most are ones that I watched with her growing up. But it's just there's something about Grace Kelly that I think no other actress has ever captured. There's this kind of she's just like she was so good at everything that she did in terms of being an actress, but she also had this really like scandalous backstory where she was like sleeping with different producers and directors and things like that, and that was never a part of her persona on screen. And then in To Catch a Thief, she's just like this like ethereal being who basically entraps the cat burglar, who's Cary Grant. And her dialogue was really great. How she doesn't wear jewels because they're cold, and she doesn't like cold things on her skin. But that movie was really important to me because I became obsessed with her. And then I watched all the movies that she did with Hitchcock until she eventually stopped acting because she married the Prince of Monaco and became, the Princess of Monaco. It was just something that, like, that movie is just so magical and the colors are so rich. The costumes are amazing. The action's great. Yeah, it really kind of sparked a love of Grace Kelly for me, with movies like Rear Window and High Society and things like that I really enjoyed when I was younger. So yeah, so that's my first one.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Should I go next?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that cool? Okay. So the one at the top of my list and probably the most influential on me as a person in general is Hairspray. And it's because I watched it at such a young age. It was essentially Hairspray and Grease were my babysitters as a child. I mean, I say this jokingly. My sister was there, but like she was maybe in the next room preparing a meal or something, like so we spent a lot of time together watching those two movies specifically. And I remember thinking that the movie was just like it didn't really register for me that the movie had this like social message to it as a child. I just really liked the energy of the movie. I thought it was really fun and I loved the story and how it progressed, and I really kind of was just enjoying it for like I don't know, like almost as like from a really blank slate kind of perspective. But I do remember that a big deal was made about Divine being in the movie, and it was made like extra apparent to me that that was not a woman for some reason, which is interesting when you think about the fact that I didn't understand that the movie was about race relations in Baltimore, or that there was this like this weird fervor about winning pageants from the parents. Like I didn't really like I didn't I it didn't set in how dark and scary this movie actually was, probably until I was an adult. And so now I sometimes think about it and I have to turn it off before the Miss Carr whatever the car show pageant part,
Miss
Because
Baltimore.
Miss Baltimore, because seeing Debbie Harry with her head, with all of her hair missing and her head kind of exploded almost, it upsets me. And that's saying a lot because I watch horror movies, and we watched one the other day where a woman jumps into a pool and all of her bones explode, and I thought it was hysterical. But for some reason, Debbie Harry looking like a bomb just went off on top of her head really hurts my spirit. But yeah, I think that scene specifically, as a child, I feel like it really fostered my love for theatricality because,
Yes.
I mean, there was just the juxtaposition of that moment, and then you see Debbie Harry and her daughter. It has the wig like basically on her face practically, and they're carrying them out, and it's just like all of this drama, and then all of a sudden it goes back to being happy again. It's almost like when the Wicked Witch interrupts the opening scene of the Wizard of Oz, but in reverse. So it was kind of like that was my moment in Oz where like we're getting to know Glinda, and then all of a sudden this scary person interrupts, but it's like in reverse. So I love that about it. But
Did you? I think I seeing Hairspray the movie the first time was with you at Purchase. I think.
the original,
Yes, I think we watched it
interesting.
together. I think we had like a John Waters night.
Yes,
Because I definitely watched Pink Flamingos for the first time with you, and
that
I
night.
was like, what is this movie? And then I think we went down like a hole, and I watched Hairspray with you too.
So the night that we watched Pink Flamingos, I remember I got bored or like disgusted by the movie. I forget which one at a certain point, and I went to bed. I don't know if you remember this. When I went to when I the and the movie, I thought that the movie was so bizarre, but on top of that, we were all stoned. So I opened the door to my room, and I can see a deer grazing right outside of the window of my bedroom. And I had to stop. Like I couldn't just go to sleep now. I'm like, I have to stop and I have to understand, is this actually happening? Or is this an extension of the bizarre energy from the movie right now? Just like with
That
my head.
movie is so
Wow.
seared into my head because we were stoned because of the egg scene is seared into my head.
I feel like every moment of that movie has gotten somebody. Like, yeah. That's the
Which is why
trampoline. Wait a minute. That's not the one where she's jumping on the trampoline, is it?
No, that's
no,
female trouble.
that's
See,
female trouble.
I'm a bad John Waters fan because I smush them all together. But
And
They all can blend together.
Mhm.
it's really interesting how he was able to find this way to make the formula that he uses, because his movies do have a bit of a formula, because they have this big flourish at the end in the form of, the bomb at the pageant, or the trampoline scene at the end of
Mhm.
Female Trouble, or the
The
dog scene
excrement.
at the
Mhm.
end of Pink
Just
Flamingos.
he has his way.
They end with a flourish, and it's so interesting how he was able to translate that to something that was, I guess, a little bit more commercially,
Yeah.
Yeah.
viable
It's
or
just
something. Whatever. I'm looking for
he's
a word,
so
I guess.
good at, like, John Waters is so good at being filthy, and
Yes.
it's funny because I think from Female Trouble is
Filthy,
what sticks in my
filthy in
head the
a
most.
cinematic way.
Yeah.
Filthy in a
It's
cinematic way.
it's like at the Academy Museum in LA, they have a show up now called I think it's the King of Filth or the Prince of Filth, and it's all about his career. And they
Love
put
that.
up they
Love it.
basically they consulted with him a little bit, but more than anything they went to all of his collaborators and gathered like artifacts that they had kept from different films, things that he didn't even know still existed, and then they kind of surprised him with this exhibition of his life. It's like
Right.
this is your life. And they gave an interview recently where he's like, I didn't even remember that half of this existed. He's like, it just disappeared from set, or it's something that like they use because it's all storytelling through the artifacts,
Yeah.
using them as a jumping off point. But yeah, I mean, I would say like in terms of John Waters, Female Trouble is the one that like sticks in my head the most. Like to me, it's the most grotesque. But also like he made these grotesque things kind of
Beautiful.
and chic, and
Yeah.
they become iconic, and then you look at them and you see them interpreted by all sorts of people, drag queens, fashion, other artists. They take elements of these characters that he and Divine created that became so iconic in their own subgenre, and then they get filtered through, right? But that's how it always goes. I think that with John Waters, it it's not even sanitizing is not the right word, but there's kind of nothing you can do to it that will remove that kind of filth from it.
Mm,
Like there's always it's always a little filthy, no matter what you do. Because you can't
Exactly.
really, like I said, Divine jumping on the trampoline with the fish and everything. It's just like how I dare you, like make that not filthy. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting because Hairspray did send me as a young adult, I would say, like a little bit older than when I first watched Hairspray. It did send me down a John Waters rabbit hole, probably like at 14 or 15, and Pink Flamingos was the one I started with because they had just re-released it for some anniversary, and I was a big fan of Roger Ebert. I would read all of his movie reviews every week, whether I knew what the movie was or not. And Pink Flamingos got 0 stars, and I was like, I gotta know why. I gotta know why, because this man is very fair with how he rates movies, but like, and I remember he wrote in his review, it's more an exercise in self-control or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely one of the bigger, more impactful John Waters movies, I would
yeah.
say.
Wow.
Toss, do you want to give us one? Do you want to give us one from your list, or do you want to give us one, the
So I'll
other
give. So
of
it's
the
funny.
two?
It's funny. I'll give you from the list. I was gonna
Okay.
start at the top and go down like you guys did, but since we're talking about John Waters, my number three favorite movie that shaped me, it is The Little Mermaid. Disney's The Little Mermaid, the
It's like
animated version.
was like, how did we get here from John Waters? And then I was like, oh, right, Ursula.
Yes. So I love that movie. It was the first Disney animated movie I ever saw. I had it on VHS. Obsessed with his story also makes me like cry too.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hans Christian Andersen?
yeah. No. Hans Christian. Alan Menken. His story. Yeah. Have you guys ever seen his documentary? Oh
No.
my God, it's so good. It's on Disney Plus, I think. It's like, yeah, because he was like, when he was like creating that, he was going through like HIV as well. And it
Oh,
was like really like, yeah.
I didn't
hmm
know that.
yeah. And I think when Beauty and the Beast came out, he was in the hospital. Yeah. The Oscars. When he won for Beauty and the Beast, he was like in the hospital with HIV.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, and yeah, Alan and John were very good friends, and Ursula, yeah. But I love
Didn't
that.
realize that was the
No,
connection
neither
for
did
the
I.
movie. That's
Yep,
really interesting.
yep, they were good friends. Alan was a very, very opinionated gay man. Most gay men were.
What are you
He was
talking about?
he was quite the theater queen in New York. I highly recommend this documentary. Like, learned so much about him. But it talks about his career and legacy in Disney, basically. I love The Little Mermaid. I think it is like the pinnacle of Disney animation, that movie specifically.
Hmm.
Even, yeah, like everyone says Lion King, but I think Little Mermaid is the pinnacle, is like the peak for me, personally.
What year was Little Mermaid? Were we kids when
I
that movie came out?
It
I
was
think
in
it
the
was
80s,
89. It was
89.
1989, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we were like 4,
because it went
5.
Little Mermaid, then it went Aladdin, and then it went
Hmm.
Beauty and the Beast. Those were all his. And then I
I only
think
remember Beauty and the Beast in terms of like going to the movies to see it.
those three were his, yes, because Lion King was not his. That was Tim Rice and Elton John.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So to me, the golden age was Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. But
Yeah.
to others, Lion King is the golden age.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the biggest thing that you've taken away from that movie?
I love that movie because, like, I think a lot of people, there's been like so many think pieces on that movie. It's a gay man wrote that. Like,
Mhm.
it's very like, I want to be part of that world. Hello.
Wow, I did not put that together until
Yeah,
you just did it
that's
for
what I
me.
thought Toss
Wow.
was referencing.
Yeah, all of that. Hans Christian Andersen was gay. Wasn't he gay too?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
gay, and the rumor is that he wrote I mean, the story of the Little Mermaid has been around for
Yeah.
different versions for a while, but his version, which is the one where she has to kill herself because he won't marry her, the prince, and then
Yeah.
she kills herself and throws herself into the water and becomes the foam on the ocean.
Yeah.
And it was supposedly a story that he wrote in reaction to this man who he had basically unrequited love for.
Yeah.
and that was like his way of dealing with those feelings. Is
Yeah.
the story of the Little Mermaid.
Yeah. So my love of Disney began with The
Yeah.
Little Mermaid. Yeah.
We are such a
Basically.
creative people. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like I will always be proud to say that that iconic movie came from a gay man, both the original and the adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. Daniel, you're next.
Daniel,
So okay, I'm really bad at this because I've realized in thinking about this exercise that my movies aren't so much like the individual movies, but the actress in them. So it's like so basically it's
so basically
the
you're
movie.
gay.
What movie?
No, I said so basically you're gay.
No, I was gonna say that it was Funny Face, which is the movie with Audrey Hepburn and I think Gene Kelly.
Ah,
I love Audrey Hepburn and everything she's done, but there's something about the range, just seeing her as this kind of really like fragile, like really play all these different characters from like she's essentially like a bookstore keeper in Funny Face who gets wrapped into the fashion world, which is so like not her thing as a character, and they turn her into a model, which I think it's just really beautiful, and the costumes were also really just like a spectacle, right? Because she didn't want to be a model. She didn't want to be part of the fashion world. She saw it as dirty and disingenuous, right? And so this movie to me, I was just like, but you can like not that you can be smart and pretty too, but that it really taught me that people can be really multifaceted, even those who are like I'm this, right? So like a lot of times, people can go around saying like, oh, I'm just like this type of person in a negative way. But that's not just who you are. Like everybody has all these different parts of themselves and they can, either coexist peacefully or not. Or, in the case of her character, she had to embrace that, and she didn't have to embrace it, but that to me, what that movie did was show me that there's this person who is just not, she's like just hiding herself from the world in the bookstore, and so I like that story a lot. It's also some amazing musical numbers in it, and there's this scene of her running down the steps of the Louvre that made me want to go to Paris, which I eventually did for school. Similarly with like Sabrina, which is another movie that she's in where she goes to Paris to become a chef. So yeah, I would say that movie definitely just kind of made me want to like look outside of where I was. I think like geographically and also mentally.
Something about what you were saying about her putting herself on hold or something as a character in Funny Face as the librarian.
Mhm.
Not to clock your tea or whatever, but it basically reminded me of your coming out story.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a lot of it. I feel like growing up because I not in a bad way, but my we were very much a unit, so I didn't really come out until after my mom's passing because we were just kind of all just taking care of each other, so I didn't really feel like there was a ton of room for me for like another element to come out. I mean, no pun intended. And it wasn't like I was ever told like don't come out. I just decided like, oh, it's not time or I'm too busy. Like I came up with all these excuses. And so I found a lot of escapism in these movies that my mother would share with me because there were these people who were going out and either living out their lives as a fantasy or being, like pulled out of their safe spaces and, like being kind of almost like a Pygmalion, you know what I mean? Like made alive by somebody else, and I really connected with those movies a lot. But yeah.
Sounds like a movie
Yeah.
on my list. So one of the movies that I'm starting to reconnect with as an adult is Anne of Green Gables. And it's something that because I remember, the reason I remember watching it is because we had the 2 VHS copy of it. And so, but I don't remember anything from the movies. And so we've kind of been watching clips of the movie on YouTube. And what I'm getting is that, this is a girl whose parents died. And so she's sent to live with her relatives. And she is not this like, she's a young girl, but she's not what people expect a young girl to be. She's not retiring. She's not quiet. She is creative and she has an active imagination. And I relate, but it just it seems a lot like what you were just describing with Funny Face.
It's interesting because while we've been watching these clips from Anne of Green Gables, which I was like, when you first suggested it, I was like, what are you talking about? But it seems like there's this precocious nature that match a lot of the stories that you've told me from like when you were a kid. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Because I feel like as a child, you were living out all of those, um, like, okay, so I'm convinced that if you were born like a little later, you'd be the kid in that commercial where it's like, she's a floozy. You were that kid who would just say the thing that was top of your mind. And I grew up very much not, again, not being told not to say things, but just I would sit there and observe and observe and observe and just kind of like not really engage until I wasn't very impulsive. And I feel like that, like, I don't know, it sounds kind of fun, just like, kids say the darndest things. Like it is some of the things that you've told me about, like that you said when you were growing up. I just like, why do we not have a recording of that? Like
Well,
they're really funny.
one of the things that my sister loves, one of the stories my sister loves to tell is that at her wedding, people were making comments to me and were like, "Oh, you're going to become an uncle soon." And I would say, "Oh no, my sister's on the pill." And my sister, yeah, and so my sister wasn't on the pill, but I was a fan of Molly Ringwald, and she had this movie called For Keeps, where she
Oh
is a
my
pregnant
god.
high schooler, and I used to watch it a lot as a child because they'd rerun it a lot on HBO. And so a lot of my concept of the world is like just, this movie is probably true, so let's apply it to the world. But yeah, that's very, very much the spirit of Anne of Green Gables, or also Pippi Longstocking, which I completely had forgotten about.
My
But that was one of those movies that I could never. They rerun it a lot, but I never caught it at the beginning or whatever. But we probably need to revisit Miss Pippi. Ask who's next on your list.
So, my top two, number two movie that I love that shaped me a lot is Pulp Fiction.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a big like left from The Little Mermaid. But
Tell me
uh
more.
yeah, no, I love that movie. I am obsessed with that movie. That movie made me want to like actually like study film even more. Like there was like a time where I wanted to study film at Purchase as well.
Hmm.
My number one is actually why I wanted to go to Purchase. So we'll save that for a little bit. But I think that movie is brilliant. I think it's Quentin Tarantino's greatest work. Kill Bill is very high up there as well, but I think Pulp Fiction is his greatest work. It just gives you like this lens into like Americana, but in like a very dark sort of way. And like I love it. Like there's so many memories of that movie that are just like jarring too. Like the the scene with the syringe with
yeah.
Uma Thurman. Oh my god, the ball gag scene. Um, there's just like so many jarring scenes in that movie, and like, but also like the thing with Quentin Tarantino is that's his point. He like makes you want to like pay attention to like these really like disturbing images, but like not like disturbing for just for the sense of it. Like I feel like. And I think he has one more film coming. He says he's gonna do one more film before he retires, which
Hmm.
Lady Gaga is interested in being in. I've read about this.
Okay.
She wants to be
Okay.
in this final Quentin Tarantino.
Where she is.
I mean, I love Lady Gaga as an actress, but I'm just saying it's like she's the star. She doesn't need to attach to herself to some big name director.
Yeah,
She's the star. Like you're a star, baby. Like
yeah, exactly. But
it's
what's
funny
your
how in
guys' favorite Tarantino film?
real quick, I was just gonna say I find it interesting that that movie is a lot of him lulling you into a false sense of security right
Yep.
before something like bam hits you in the face. My favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is Jackie Brown. Strangely enough,
That makes very much sense.
I really enjoy that movie, and I love how you can feel the power radiating off of Pam Grier as you're watching it.
Yeah. What about you, Daniel?
Quentin Tarantino's hard for me because they're very intense.
They are intense films, yes.
I mean, I think Kill Bill, I don't know if that's cliche or not, but like,
Wow,
I love the soundtrack.
it's a
I think
beautiful soundtrack.
it was the first Quentin Tarantino movie I saw because I actually hadn't seen Pulp Fiction, I think, until like last year, I think. Like I'd seen like clips of it, but it
It
was
was the
last
one
year when we watched
Tarantino
it.
movie that you hadn't seen yet.
And what
Yeah.
did you think of Pulp Fiction?
I loved it. I thought it was really like like you're saying this look into Americana, but it's very like twisted in a
Yep,
way.
a
I
twisted
mean,
look into Americana.
it's funny because when we watched Pulp Fiction, all I could think of was like, well, this is what Lady Gaga was referencing in the telephone music video, like again and again and again, like a lot of those visuals and this grittiness and
Yeah,
almost like there was a movie that we watched, The Monkey, that we watched this past weekend, and it's that like I don't know what you call that type of film where it's like almost hyper realistic, you know, where these things are everything is so much bigger and kind of
yeah,
cartoonish.
yeah.
You know,
So
like
I
even
think
that
yeah,
diner that they go to, especially
with
for me
Pulp
anyway.
Fiction, I think the whole idea of it was like even in the title, Pulp
Hmm.
Fiction. So Pulp Comics, which was a very like intense sort of comic book back in the day as well.
Hmm.
But like all of
Yeah.
his films are very intense. Like Reservoir Dogs is like very disturbing. Django Unchained, another very disturbing film. But yeah, no, he has a certain way about it. But like that movie I saw at a young age, and it like made me like be obsessed with just like the art of filmmaking because there was like there's so many artistic choices he made in that film that I really, really appreciate. I wanted to like study and learn more. Like, why did he make this choice, and why did he make this choice
Hmm.
about it?
It's fascinating how he's able to, because with a lot of his movies, he'll tell a story, but he's not necessarily telling it chronologically. And
Yeah,
so I love how he's able to weave these stories together and you just pick it up at whatever part he's choosing to show you in that moment of the movie.
yeah,
And it makes sense. And it's engaging and entertaining. And I will say Kill Bill is my number two. It's like, it's one of those movies where if I see that it's on a streaming service, I have to fight the urge to press play. I have to do it. But because
yeah.
I
Which
really love
part
Kill
do you
Bill.
guys love more, one or two of Kill Bill?
One.
One.
Yeah.
Probably because I've spent the most time with it, but also I think it came out when we were freshmen in college and there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of, like there were a lot of conversations about it, and I don't know if it was because this was not right after Pulp Fiction. Jackie Brown was after Pulp
Yeah,
Fiction, but this was like kind of a return to the loudness that he was known for because Jackie Brown
yeah,
is kind of quiet,
yes,
and so I remember how exciting it felt like an event that movie was coming out. And I remember the excitement for part two. And I even remember going to the movies with like all these people that I just met to see volume two and kind of
yeah.
hating some of them.
It was a cultural moment, Kill
It
Bill.
was,
The release of Kill Bill. Yeah.
and
So
it was also the time when I was figuring out how to download movies illegally. So that was also like, that was steered into my mind. Kill Bill and Chicago were the first two.
nice.
They're always in my mind with the property of Miramax.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I want to watch Kill Bill right now. Okay. Wait, did we just did Toss, so let's do Daniel next.
One thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, please.
again, I think not that I misunderstood the assignment, but these aren't like my favorite movies, but they're for the purposes of this assignment. It's what popped into my head first. So, the movie that I thought of a lot while we were putting this together was The Descent, the horror movie with the cave diving,
Such a good movie.
because I remember Robert and I've seen horror movies throughout the course of my life. I really love them now. They're probably my favorite genre of movie. Kind of any horror movie. It doesn't matter because they pull me out of being sad or anxious. Like they do something like it's like I'm being like electroshocked every time I watch a horror movie, and it's the only thing that makes me like it takes me out of myself now. But I was always scared to watch them. Like as a kid, like I remember I would stay with my aunts sometimes on the weekends and they would let me rent whatever movie I wanted, right? And I was like, I want to watch Bram Stoker's Dracula. Okay. At like 8 years old, we were watching that movie. And I was horrified and I couldn't sleep, or I was like, let's watch Jaws, and then I couldn't even take a bath because I didn't know if a shark was going to come out of the tub. So I did not react very well to horror movies as a child and even as like an adult. But then when Robert and I started dating, one day when I was over at his apartment, I think we were snowed in. And because we had plans to do something and we were like, you know what, we'll just stay in. And I just remember like it was just it felt like we were in a cabin because his apartment had a balcony, and so the snow was like halfway up it. Like it was a very like you really felt snowed in. And he's like, let's watch The Descent. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I'm like, okay. He's like, but I'm gonna go wash the dishes. And I said, why? Because he was so scared of this movie and those like humanoid creatures that he couldn't watch it. And I remember sitting there watching this, and like he would peek every so often from the kitchen. He's like, "Are they there yet? Like, have they come out yet?" You know. And I was like, "But," and I said, "So you want me to watch this horrifying movie that you can't even sit down and watch alone?" Alone. And I was like, fine, I'll watch it. And I absolutely loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the way it made me feel, how uncomfortable it made me. Like, it made my skin crawl. Right, they all sound like really terrible, like terrible sensations. But after I saw that movie, I just wanted to watch more and more and more horror movies to the point where, like, we watch maybe one a week, if, you know, when we have time, if not more.
That's a slow
And
week.
it's a slow week, and
That's
like,
a slow
you
week.
know, we'll watch YouTube videos. This weekend it's been binging YouTube videos about horrific like found footage and lost footage, and I'm just like, there must be something wrong with me, but nothing like horror or something really dark will do it these days, you know.
Hmm.
And I feel like it started with The Descent because I realized how escapist horror can be. Like it's not meant to traumatize you. Like you're supposed to enjoy the feeling of being scared. And I feel like a really good horror movie, you'll go back to it again and again and again because it makes you feel scared for real, even though you're not. You know, like you're not actually in danger.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll even watch home invasion horror movies, which are the scariest to me, because it's the reason I don't want a house. Like, no house, no woods. Like, I want floodlights everywhere. Just
Home
do not.
invasion movies are terrifying,
They are
actually.
horrifying, but they do it for me. They scare me, but you know, we'll just always live in an apartment, I guess.
The interesting thing about The Descent is it's not just a horror movie, it's also a movie about loyalty and
Yes.
secrets and all of this stuff that's going on between these women. There's a lot of stuff about ego because the whole reason they're even in that cave is because the one woman wants to discover it, probably because she feels bad about the affair she was having with this woman's
Hmm.
husband. Like there's all of this other stuff that is like causing tension before the humanoid creatures even show up. But that movie still terrifies me to this day. When we do watch it probably like once a year, and I have to really like brace for impact when like I remember the scene when we actually meet the humanoid creatures, and I'm always like bracing for impact when that scene comes. My intro to horror movies, and also a movie that definitely changed the way I move about the world, is Scream. And I know that I've said this a
Yeah.
million times. I saw Scream when I was 12 years old, and I could not walk home at night from a friend's house. I couldn't handle going to sleep. I basically didn't sleep for like that whole year. It was so bad that I purchased a VHS copy of the movie when it finally did come out. I had to return it so that it wasn't in my bedroom. Like it was that bad. It changed how I moved about the world. It scared me in such a way. But what's interesting is that the fear was so great that I was like, I'm so scared of this, but I need to watch this movie again. I need to
Mhm.
watch it again. And so it sent me down a rabbit hole first with Wes Craven, because I remember the first movie I watched after Scream was A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm so grateful that I had that year of like, I would convince myself that Ghostface had just run past my bedroom. I'd convince myself of it because I was that entertained, I guess, by it. It was almost like I wanted to be a part of it in a way, which was weird. I also, my best friend at the time had one of those like glass doors at the back of his house, kind of like what the house has at the beginning of the movie. And I would dare myself to look out when we were having like sleepovers, like to just sit up and look out to see if anybody was there. It was like one of those things that like it definitely changed my, I guess, like the course of my adolescence, even because I remember my mother getting very frustrated with me for watching these movies and then like not being able to sleep because I would essentially, my cure for that was that I'd sleep on the floor of my parents' bedroom, and the only option was on my mom's side. So if I'm sleeping on the floor and she has to get up to go to the bathroom, how's she going to do that? So like that was a lot of what took place when I was a teenager.
Wow.
Nice. What's your favorite Scream movie? The first one?
Politically, I think I have to say the first one. But if I'm being super, super, super honest, I really, really love what they did with the last two movies. And they're here for me. They're just like, they're about here for
They're
me.
great.
The
I love
fifth
the
one is,
last two.
the fifth one is right there.
My
But like, I
favorite,
love them. I love them. I love them.
my favorite aside from the first one and the last two is the fourth one, The Bridge.
Mm,
Love the fourth one. Three is the lowest, of course. Three is my least
yeah.
favorite. And then I like two as well. But the fourth, like, oh my gosh. Oh my god.
The third one for me is not it's definitely not at the top of my list, but it's also not at the bottom of my list. I think it's the second one
Oh,
for me.
the second one's at the bottom for you. Oh, I
Yeah.
love the second one. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second
Yeah.
one was a lot more exciting before,
I think
before it got these
what I
last
love
couple.
about the second one was all of the cast in it. Like all of the
Mm.
yeah, that they got for it. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar and what's her name from Roseanne?
Laurie Metcalf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one, Jerry O'Connell. Yeah. So many
Mhm.
good actors in that one.
I have
Jaden
don't know.
such
Smith,
I have such a great memory of going to see that movie opening weekend. And for some
same.
reason, everyone in my high school happened to go to the same showing at the same movie theater, same showing. So we were just kind of all in a room together watching this. And so like we were able to talk about it. Like it was kind of one of the first times that we were able to discuss, or that I was able to discuss the experience of watching the movie. Because the first time I'd seen it, everybody that was my age was like afraid of it in a way. So, it was so interesting being able to like commiserate about feeling the discomfort of being in a movie theater during that opening sequence in the second one.
Yeah.
Like that was like a good one.
I'm excited for the next one to see what
I
they're
hope
gonna.
it's good.
I am by default.
I'm excited, but like nervous because of what they had to change. So, yeah,
Have I told you my theory?
maybe, but share it with the.
So my theory is that, and this is probably super, super wrong, but my theory is that Melissa Barrera is the killer in the seventh one. And the reason that they had to create all of this story of, them firing her because of her tweets, and then Jenna Ortega is also in on the game and whatever. Like, I feel like that we're going to get a Nev versus Sam showdown in the seventh one.
Wow.
So do you
I
You
think
think
that'd
that's
be
why
interesting.
they're bringing back all the killers? Isn't that like they're bringing them back as ghosts or something?
They have to
Or
be.
like,
So do you think that the whole Palestine thing was manufactured, or no? I think she believes that, but I don't. Yeah,
I think I'm creating fan fiction, and I don't think that I don't think that stuff is manufactured. I think my imagination is just, having a spree.
I have a feeling though we might get Billy Loomis back, or not Billy Loomis. He's dead, obviously. What's his name? The other one.
No, but he's both of them. They're all basically every person who has been revealed as the killer in the old movies has signed on to do the seventh one. So
Yeah.
we're all just kind of like,
I mean, Billy can come back in like what's it called, flashbacks and stuff like that. So, but
God.
I have a feeling his friend might not be dead, even though we think he's dead.
we might
I
be.
mean, a TV fell on his head.
We're either getting them as ghosts or we're getting them as flashbacks.
Yeah, yeah.
So who knows?
Should be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So my number one is this movie, like you, Rob, with Kill Bill. Like, if this movie ever comes on TV, I have to stop and watch, or I have to struggle to not watch it. This movie, coincidentally, beat Pulp Fiction for Best Picture, so beat my number two. My number one film that I love to this day, it's never changed, is Forrest Gump.
Really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Aw.
I know it's very weird. My top three is
No, it's
very
it's such
like.
a it's such a like sweet movie.
No, I just think it is. Yeah, it's a sweet movie. I love it. It actually made me actually enjoy U.S. history more from like just from the way that they like just implanted Forrest into U.S. history. It was
Hmm.
so like farcical but sweet at the same time. Like this story is like just so like out of this world, but like
But wholesome.
but wholesome. And like I thought the acting was incredible in it. I've never been a huge Tom Hanks fan. I think he does an incredible job in that movie. I think Robin Wright was like, oh my god, her portrayal was what like broke me. Like her portrayal just throughout the years as Jenny was phenomenal. And then Sally Field, oh my gosh. Like those three for me in that film. Like
Wow, no
it's
mention for the feather. No mention for the feather.
the feather to me is like, yeah, the symbolism. Oh, Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise.
Gary
Oh my
Lieutenant
god.
Sinise,
Dan.
Lieutenant
Oh,
Dan. How dare you?
that film, yes, it's an iconic film, and it made me want to study. Yeah, it made me want to do AP US history in high school. That film caused that. So, and it made me want to, and which made me want to also like, I went to purchase for political science originally, and then I dropped political science because I was like, not into it because it was just too much. And as we can see, how too much is with political science in America.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
yeah, I just love that film. Like it's very like yes, wholesome at the same time. It's very Robert Zemeckis. He has a very certain way of doing films which is very wholesome, but I think like he was also able to capture some like dark elements of Americana as well. So
Mhm.
this is where like my top 1 and 2 are like Americana films but from two very different lenses.
I think it's one of the few epics that we've ever gotten in the course of our lifetime because like our parents grew up with these big sweeping like The Wizard of Oz or Gone with the
Yeah.
Wind or like these movies that are these grand things, and I feel like something about Forrest Gump felt like the Odyssey. It felt like
Yeah.
the way that they were able to weave together American history and make it feel like it was this journey that,
This simple man's journey through American
Mhm.
history. Yes.
hmm
And the way how it ends, yes, with him waiting and the feather again, and with Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth
Oh
yes,
Sense.
my god.
yes.
Oh my God.
Haley Joel
So,
Osment as his son,
yes,
right?
yes, as his son. And the circular nature of the story, how he like meets the same bus driver as Forrest did. I just love it. It was great. It was a great film.
It really is. We watched that movie not too long ago, right?
Yeah, because that was another movie that I hadn't really seen because I'm not a big Tom Hanks fan at all. Like
Yeah,
I think the only movie that I'd seen him in before Forrest Gump was Philadelphia, which like it's pretty heavy, but I don't think I'd seen any of his other movies. He just doesn't like. He seems very nice, but he doesn't
yeah.
really interest me
He's
very
one of those
much as an
actors which
actor.
is great, but like it's just like not my cup of tea. He's like
Yeah,
it's
I feel like
always been like
there are
yeah.
like like do you remember when Tom Hanks got COVID? It was like a national emergency.
I mean,
Yes.
Like it
is
made
what
news.
he was the entryway of COVID for the world.
It was a while because him and his wife were like stuck in I don't know, it was like in Australia or something. Like it was this whole news story and it was like that was the start of COVID was Tom Hanks contracting
Yeah,
it abroad. Yeah. And I just being like, oh no, we'll lose Tom Hanks, and I'm like, oh okay, like not okay that we lose Tom Hanks, but I was just like, what am I like? Why am I so affected? I don't even watch this man's movies. But yeah, we did watch Forrest Gump recently, and I really did like it. And I think it's interesting. You're talking about these epics, right? Like there were like you were saying, there was like Gone with the Wind. There's Cleopatra, movies like that from like the 50s through maybe the 60s or so, and then it kind of stops for the most part. And then in the 90s, you have this resurgence of like huge epics. You have
hmm
Gladiator, you have Titanic, Forrest Gump,
Titanic, Forrest Gump.
these sweeping movies that they've tried to kind of do again recently, but they don't really. I feel like it has to be the right energy, like what people want.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
speaking of,
the pace of life now is too fast for us to be able to appreciate how like the sweeping images, and you have to be able to slow down and really appreciate it
I mean,
for
we'll
that.
see. What's his name? Christopher Nolan is doing the Odyssey. So speaking of sweeping epics, we
It's
shall
good.
see. I hope it's good.
He's gonna give us a sleek, kooky adaptation. I don't think it's gonna
I
be
mean, do you remember
yeah.
those like 10-part miniseries in the 90s on TV that were
Ye-
like,
Yes.
you then there was all this merch around them and you could get the
Hmm.
soundtracks and I did for most of them.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
This was great. Wow.
Yeah.
We each did like a top three, or not a top three, but for me it was a top three.
Yeah, no,
We
definitely.
we did a lot in an
Yes.
hour.
Hmm.
Yes, we
We could
did.
go on and on with the
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, I have more on my list, but you only have
Yeah.
so much time.
One that I didn't even think of and I feel bad about it is Selena, because it was just like such a big deal for me when that movie came out, and
Selena.
it was one of the few I had the poster for the movie with my ticket stubs taped to the poster growing up,
Such a
like
good film.
over my bed. Yeah.
Her parole was just denied.
Hmm.
Did you see that?
I saw someone posted the clip of T.S. Madison trying that wig on and saying that she feels Puerto Rican in that wig. Someone was like, to celebrate Yolanda losing her parole appeal, I'm posting this clip again. The internet is so silly sometimes.
I love T.S. Madison.
That was such a good clip. All right, well, let's wrap things up. This Friday, you're getting My Bloody Valentine for Robert React, so
Ooh,
look out
good
for
film.
that. And like, share, subscribe. Let us know what movies
Hey,
changed you. Yes, Toss.
we're also going to see Kylie this week.
Yeah.
Friday
Yeah.
night. Friday
Yeah.
night, we're going to feel the tension. So we'll definitely film something of us enjoying our time at the show and bring it to you all sometime next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.